Hello, it's Richard here from Saldatore Distribution. Today what we're going to talk about on this video is putting your machines away for long-term storage, whether you've got a MOSA 150 or a MOSA 200 amp welder, doesn't make a difference. Now that we're leading into the winter season, you're going to want to put it away if you're not welding over the winter and you want to store it safely and properly, so that way next spring you're not going to have any problems with it. So what you're going to do, the first thing that we're going to want to do is you're going to want to get the fuel out of it. Gasoline does go bad after a short period of time, and to be honest with you, there are fuel stabilizers that you can put in, but for this amount of fuel, which is a couple dollars worth, it's not really worth it. It's just not enough fuel to worry about saving. So you're going to want to have a few things. You're going to want to get yourself a funnel of some sort. You're going to want some needle nose pliers, and you're going to want a pair of vice grips, preferably smaller than this. These are a big pair. I couldn't find a small pair here in the shop, but a smaller pair of vice grips. And what you're going to do is, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to unscrew the cover that sits on top of the air filter on top of the carburetor. Basically, you just take the wing nut off, the cover off, and now you've got your air filter. And you're going to take this wing nut off as well, that holds the air filter down in place on top of the carburetor. Because what we're trying to do is we're trying to get to the fuel line that goes between the fuel tank and the carburetor so we can get the fuel out. Do not flip the machine upside down to get the gasoline out. That's not recommended, because your fuel or the oil that you have in the machine is going to go all over the place inside the engine, just going to make a mess. So what you do is, now that you've got the wing nut off, you're going to take off your air filter and the plastic that goes below it that holds the air filter, and now you've opened up the system here. And if you come over here, have a look, there's a rubber tube, this one right here, that leads between, it goes underneath the fuel tank to the carburetor, and there's a little there's a little clamp on there. So that's where you're going to want to get your needle nose pliers and grab that clamp, squeeze it and lift it up and put it above, near this elbow up here above. If you push on the hose, you could feel where the end of the metal from the carburetor goes. Put it above that. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take your vice grips and you're going to just gently clamp onto the hose at the top above the clamp to squeeze it a little bit, just to keep the from pouring the fuel out. And then using a flat screwdriver or your fingers, you're just going to carefully pull the hose off. Once you got it off, you're going to put a funnel and some kind of a container to catch the fuel, and then the hose will go here. It'll pour the fuel out into a container. Keep a few cloths around, because invariably it's going to spill some fuel around. You're just going to wipe it up. It does evaporate, but you're going to want to wipe it up. Once the fuel is out of the tank sufficiently, put the hose back on. You're going to put the clamp back on. Don't forget to put the clamp back on. And then that part's done, and you're going to reassemble it. So you put the plastic cover back on. You're going to take your air filter, and you're going to put your air filter back on. You're going to grab the metal wing nut, which is the correct one for here. Now, these filters, on the bottom of the filter or the top of here, there's a rubber gasket. So you don't have to crank this down like with a lot of power. So once you've got it tightened up like this, just give it a little twist to make it tight, and as long as it's tight, you're good. And then you're going to put your cover back on like this. Plastic wing nut. Once again, you don't need to go crazy tightening it down. Just tighten it a little bit like that. That's just fine. After you've got the fuel out, now when you're taking the fuel out, one thing you're going to want to do is you're going to probably want to take the cap off the fuel tank to allow the fuel to pour out easier. More than likely it'll all come out, because there's always going to be some air trapped in there, but it's easier to get it out if you take the lid off. Then put that back on. Now the next step you're going to do is you're going to want to drain the oil out of the system. So you're going to grab yourself an adjustable wrench, and you're going to go on to here. This is also able to take a socket, so if you have a socket the correct size, you'll unscrew that. Once again, you're going to want a funnel and then some kind of a container to catch the oil. So unscrew this, take it out, and the oil will pour out. Then when you're getting near the end, you can tilt it like this, and it'll take the last of the oil out. Once the oil is sufficiently drained, you don't have to get every drop, so don't worry about that. Screw this back in, tighten it. Once again, just give it a little bit of tightening. Nothing needs to be tightened really, really tight. it's going to be tight, but not, you don't want to strip it or break it. So once that's taken care of, you now have the fuel out, the oil out. What you're going to do is you're going to spin the machine around to the other side. So you're looking at it from this perspective here. And right here, you're going to see the spark plug wire. Grab hold, there's a knob on top of the wire. Don't grab it by the wire. Grab by the knob and just pull it like this, and it takes it off, revealing the spark plug below. Then what you're going to do is you're going to grab yourself a 13/16 socket deep. It needs to be deep. If you get a shallow, it's not going to work because the socket has to go over top of the spark plug. So 13/16 deep with your ratchet and your extension. You're going to take the socket, drop it over top, make sure that it bottoms out all the way on the bottom. Then you'll put in your ratchet and you'll unscrew the spark plug. Once it's out, you will then take your fogging oil. I just went to my local, we're up in Canada, so I went to my local Canadian Tire, UAP Auto Parts, Napa, Pep Boys, pretty well everybody in automotive has it. Basically, you're looking for a fogging oil, or sometimes they just simply call it a long-term storage, engine storage oil, something to that effect, but basically it's a fogging oil. And what you're going to do is you're going to open it up, you're going to take the straw in the back, put it on to the end of the nozzle, stick the nozzle inside of the hole of the cylinder, and then you're going to spray, and then you're going to pull it out a little bit and try to manipulate it around so the spray goes all around inside the cylinder. And what happens is the spray will cling to the walls of the cylinder, and some of it will run down to the piston, coat the top of the piston, run down into the rings, and drop down below. And what happens is this oil keeps any moisture from getting and rusting or seizing any of the components inside. Basically, if you want to have a look, all this is if you take it and when it's in your engine, you spray it, basically you're spraying it like this, and what happens, you'll see that it runs down, but not all of it runs down. You'll get some of it that runs down, and that'll go into the top of the piston and the rings, as I mentioned, to get down in there and lubricate everything. But the rest of it, the majority of it, sits up top in the cylinder itself, coating the walls, and it doesn't run and it doesn't evaporate. And basically that just keeps all of the moisture out. It keeps anything from rusting or seizing. Once you're done spraying inside there, you don't need to use an entire can. It's a small single cylinder, so a few sprays, 2-3 sprays is enough. So a can like this will last you for 6-8 years every time you're going to go and put it away for the season. Once you're done, put the spark plug back in. I always recommend thread in the spark plug by hand. Don't use tools, don't force it in. Just thread it by hand until it gets to the end. Put your socket on and then just give it a little bit, a quarter turn tightening. That's tight enough. Once that's in, remove the socket and then put the cap back on top like this. And now you've removed the fuel, removed the oil, fogged the engine, and you're good to go. Put it wherever it's going to be for the season. And what I usually do is I put a sheet, a bed sheet, an old bed sheet, whatever, over top, and then a plastic tarp over top of that. And then I just tilt it and tuck the whole thing underneath the stand so it's basically sealed. Try to keep it out of outdoors if you can avoid it. It's okay because of what you've done, but indoors on a shelf somewhere is the best thing to do, in the back of the garage somewhere, wherever you got space. The tarp will keep the dust and anything that's spilled off of it, and the cloth will give you a bit of a barrier if you bump it so you don't scratch it or do anything like that. Every once, maybe once a month or 2 months, pull it off, have a look. If you see any moisture building up anywhere, just wipe it down, let it dry off, then put it back on, but you shouldn't see anything as long as it's indoors. And that will basically keep it in perfect condition, so when you're ready to go next spring, you're going to put fresh oil in, fresh gasoline. Now after that, it's going to take a few starts to go because you have to, and it's going to blow some smoke because you're burning off the fogging oil, but that's not a big deal because you remove the spark plug, you put it back in, it's now not going to be covered with anything, so it'll spark and light up that fuel right away and start up like a charm, and you're set to go for a new season. Hopefully that helps. If you want to see any other information, go to our website at saldatore.ca and you can have a look at some other videos we've done, or YouTube, of course. If you have any questions or any any comments, anything at all, feel free to give us a call through the website, and we'll help you out. We'd love to answer questions and help you out. Hopefully that was useful, and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.